My name is Noah, and for 7 years, I was married to a woman named Clara. We met at a networking conference in Seattle, a place humming with ambition and the static of shallow conversations. I hadn't expected anything more than a few polite exchanges, a few business cards swapped between coffee breaks. But then, through the chaos, I saw her. Clara didn't demand attention. She drew it effortlessly. She moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, her laughter cutting through the noise like sunlight through a gray sky. When we finally spoke, it wasn't the usual small talk. It was a spark, an ignition, the kind of connection that makes the world tilt ever so slightly on its axis. What started as a conversation turned into something much more, a shared world, a rhythm that only we seemed to understand. People admired us. We were the couple others envied at gatherings. The inside jokes, the matching ambitions, the home that looked like it belonged in a magazine. We weren't just in love, we were aligned. That's how it looked from the outside. Polished, perfect. But people only see what they're allowed to. And surface perfection has a cruel way of hiding the fractures underneath. The early years of our marriage were a dream. Late-night conversations over takeout, early morning kisses that tasted like coffee and promises, spontaneous weekend road trips, lazy Sundays tangled in blankets. Everything felt soft, safe, and infinite. I genuinely believed we were building something unshakable, something built to last. But happiness, I've come to understand, is not a constant. It needs care, attention, and somewhere along the line, ours began to wither. In the 6th year of our marriage, Clara reconnected with an old friend, Lena. Lena was chaos wrapped in confidence. The kind of woman who prided herself on unpredictability, who laughed at responsibility and scoffed at permanence. She was everything Clara used to distance herself from. Everything she once told me felt like a threat to stability. And yet, there she was, back in Clara's life, like a spark tossed into dry grass. At first, I said nothing. I told myself it was harmless. Everyone needs that one friend who shakes things up, right? But then came the nights Clara didn't come home, the vague explanations. We lost track of time, she'd say with a tired smile, just like the old days. And I wanted to believe her. God, I needed to believe her. So I buried my doubt, smothered it with trust. But trust doesn't last when the signs keep stacking up. I noticed the unfamiliar clothes hanging in her side of the closet, heard the hushed tones of late-night calls in rooms she never used to hide in. Her touch became colder, her smile more forced. She stopped looking me in the eyes when she said, "I love you." I stopped believing her. One night, while she soaked in the tub, humming a tune I didn't recognize, I reached for her phone, just to check the time. But the screen was locked, passcode protected. A tiny thing, but it hit like a freight train. We never had secrets. Not until that moment. I didn't confront her. I didn't raise my voice. I just carried that cold weight with me like a second skin. But suspicion is a quiet killer. It erodes you from the inside, wordlessly. And eventually I broke, with more shame than I've ever felt. I installed tracking software on her phone. It was a line I never thought I'd cross. But I needed answers. I needed to know whether the monster I feared was real or just my imagination playing cruel tricks. What I found didn't just hurt, it devastated. Clara wasn't just hanging out with Lena. They were part of a private group chat, 4 women in total, planning what they jokingly called escape nights. These weren't harmless girls' nights out. These were methodical deceptions, fake names, clubs, secret meetups arranged online. It wasn't weakness. It was choice. Cold, deliberate betrayal. One message burned itself into my mind. Asterisk, I don't want to hurt Noah, but fidelity feels like a cage. Asterisk, Lena, ever the chaos enthusiast, cheered her on like a drunk muse of destruction. Every word twisted the knife deeper. The woman I fell in love with, the one I imagined growing old beside, had become someone unrecognizable. And yet, I said nothing. I kissed her forehead at night. I made her coffee in the morning. I lived beside her like a ghost, silently watching the last pieces of us decay. Privately, I hired a PI. Within a week, I had everything Photos, call logs, receipts, all the damning evidence you could imagine. Still, I didn't file for divorce. Not yet, because I didn't just want to end it. I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to know what it meant to lose something real. So I played the long game. I started pulling away, slowly, surgically. I came home late. I stopped asking questions. I gave her the distance she once craved. She noticed. The panic in her eyes when I stopped needing her, when I started looking right through her, was louder than any argument we never had. One night, I told her, I won't be home tonight. I need space. Just one sentence. And in that moment, the first real emotion flickered across her face in months. Fear. A few days later, I left my phone unlocked on the table with a dating profile open. Carefully staged. It wasn't real, but it was enough. The next morning, she sat at the kitchen table in silence, my phone in her hands. "Is this what you meant by space?" she asked, voice shaking. I met her gaze. Asterisk you asterisk changed the rules. I'm just playing by them. That's when it all began to unravel. The final act came a week later. I invited Clara and Lena over for dinner, just like old times. I poured the wine. I smiled like nothing had changed. Then I turned off the lights and switched on the projector. Photos, messages, screenshots, hotel receipts, time-stamped, verified. The room turned to ice. Clara went pale. Lena laughed, tried to joke. I cut her off. "You convinced my wife that betrayal was freedom," I said. "That loyalty was weakness. Well, now you both know what it feels like to lose something real." I slid the divorce papers across the table. Clara cried. She begged. She said it was a phase, that she didn't mean it, that she still loved me. But some truths, once exposed, can't be undone. Some fractures don't mend, not even with tears. As I left that night, I turned to her one last time. "You chose freedom," I said. "Now I choose mine." I moved into a small apartment downtown. No art on the walls. No smell of perfume on the pillows. But the silence there wasn't cold. It was clean, free of lies. I didn't rebuild the life I lost. I created something new, something mine, something that couldn't be taken or betrayed. I don't regret loving her. I regret the person I gave that love to. But betrayal doesn't have to break you. If you let it, it remakes you.